Hello, everyone. How's it going? My name is Scott Pinyard. I am the head coach at This Naked Mind, and I am here on Sunday, like I try to be almost every Sunday. Tell you some of the things I've been thinking about this week. I want to talk this week about willpower. Willpower played such a huge part in my journey, and it just didn't have to. I, like a lot of other people, thought that willpower is what was needed to get through this process, and actually, that's not the case. And I want to tell you all about that in just a minute. But before I do, I want to invite you, if you listen to what I have to say on this and you think, you know what, I want to learn a little bit more about that. I want to hear from other people who have gone through this process without willpower. Then I highly suggest you go to nakedlifestories.com. You might know last year in 2020, we released a book it's more than 40 stories of people who went through this process with this naked mind, and they quit drinking. And this is their stories, right? This is them reaching out, and this is them telling us, what it was like for them. So what I'm about to explain to you about willpower not being a necessary requirement might sound weird, might sound interesting. And again, don't take my read for it. Head on over to nakedlifestories.com. Check that out. You'll be able to see that book for free. You can also go to Amazon and buy it for like 18 bucks if you want. Or if you want a free digital copy, go to nakedlifestories.com. Let me say hi to some people. Hey, Cindy, how's it going? Shelly, how are you? Happy Sunday. Hello, Roman in London. Jen in Australia. Happy Monday to you, I believe. I think. I'm getting bad at that. Yes, it's Monday for you. So happy Monday, Jen. So willpower. Let's talk about willpower. So let me first tell you what it was like in my journey up until I read This Naked Mind. So the way that I understood quitting drinking was this. I drink too much every day. I want to then quit drinking. So I'm going to suffer until I am no longer drinking and no longer want it. Right? That was what I thought of. That's what I thought quit drinking was about, right? That literally, that was it, right? As long as I suffered long enough, right? As long as I had enough going on, and as long as I was constantly staying on top of this thing, I could just, push through, right? I could just push through the whole thing. And that's what I tried. And I tried that for like 6 years. And I actually talked to a lot of people who tried this very similar process. And the fact of the matter is, willpower is a muscle, right? Willpower is like a muscle. And eventually it gets fatigued. Just like if you go to the gym, you can only do so many curls until you can't do any more curls, right? The same exact thing is true for willpower. And so what I found when I tried to quit drinking this way is that I could get so far and then I'd drink. And then I would get so far and then I would drink. And it was so frustrating to me because in the beginning stages of this, I was full of fire. It was like, I want to quit this. Like, I want to change this behavior. I have to change this behavior. And I was dead certain. I was so dead set. Like, yes, I am absolutely going to do this. And then a few days would go by and I'd just be like, I can't do this, right? And I'd find myself back in where I was. So I want to talk about a different way of looking at it. And by the way, what I'm talking about here with alcohol is applicable to lots of different things. I want to say hi to a few more people first. Hey, June, how are you? Jen, good. It is Monday there, Jen, good. Christine, how are you? Oh, I'm glad you like my hat. Thank you. Jennifer in Boston, hello there. All right. So, and I forgot to say this too. Please, I want to encourage you guys to go ahead and type in your questions while I finish up what I have to say, and I'm happy to answer questions if you have any. So, the way that we typically approach change is this idea of, all right, I really want to change, so I'm going to force myself to change, right? We start thinking, okay, let's just work on the behavior, right? Drinking is the problem, so I'll just quit drinking. Right? Or again, applied to anything else, right? Like overeating is the problem or smoking is the problem. So I'm going to work on that behavior. I'm just going to quit that behavior. Here's why that doesn't work. So when things happen in the world, right? When things are happening around us, we're processing them. We're processing them with subconscious thoughts and conscious thoughts and emotions. And all of that process leads to behavior, right? So something happens out there. We take it in through our senses. And then we have subconscious thoughts. Those subconscious thoughts cause conscious thoughts. Those conscious thoughts cause emotions. And those emotions are what drive our behavior. So this idea of, oh, I'm just going to tweak all the way out here at the end of this process, right? I'm just going to change this behavior seems on the face of it to make sense. But the thing is, what we are ignoring are the emotions and the conscious thoughts and the subconscious thoughts that are leading to this behavior. And so the idea of something like willpower really means I'm going to take this finite resource that I have and I am just going to put it way out here. I'm just going to work on behavior and I'm going to just fight all of the emotions and conscious thoughts and subconscious thoughts that are happening to me while I'm going through this process, right? And that doesn't work. And I don't mean to, I don't want to say that it's impossible, because there certainly are people who quit drinking with willpower. But for the vast majority of us, that isn't the case. And I'll add on top of that, very often what happens when we quit drinking with willpower is we end up not drinking, but miserable. Imagine that, right? Like you're struggling to quit drinking, and then you finally get there and you're unhappy. I have someone that I coached once who had over 11 months alcohol free before she got into a coaching program, and it was because of that. It was because she had quit with willpower, but she hadn't done the work to sort of reorient things to make life enjoyable again. So here is the alternative, right? The alternative to willpower, and it's fairly simple, actually. This is exactly what how I did it and how I learned to do it through This Naked Mind. So if you remember, I said, right, information comes in, we have subconscious thoughts, we have conscious thoughts, we have emotions, and we have behavior. Before I ever worked on the behavior, before I ever said, all right, today's the day I'm going to quit drinking, I actually put work in on those conscious thoughts I was having. Right? I actually looked into those emotions that I was experiencing around alcohol. And I actually looked into, we call them beliefs, but you can also call them subconscious thoughts or scripts or stories, however you want to say it. I looked into some of the subconscious conditioning that I've had. And I spent time working on those things before I ever tried to put down a drink. Right? Now, it seems counterintuitive. Like people who join us in our year-long program, which is called The Path, they'll very regularly hear us say, right when they start, like, all right, don't quit drinking right now. We're going to do this other work. And there's always a minute of like, wait, what do you mean? Isn't that why I'm here? Right? I came here to quit, didn't I? But the reality is that in order for us to get to the place where we can quit without willpower, and I want to comment on that in a second, where we can quit and where it's a decision, where we actually change, and this is the key, where we change our desire for alcohol. In order for us to get there, we need all the energy we can muster, right? So using willpower to try to quit drinking and be miserable, and it's not conducive to this process. So I read This Naked Mind, the book. For those of you who have read the book, you know that there is a process that Annie takes you through in that book. And in that process is all about changing the way you view alcohol, right? Literally changing your thoughts about alcohol. Both conscious and subconscious thoughts. I'm not going to get into too much detail here on how we do that. You can hear all about it in some of our programs. But the bottom line is this, right? We have all lived our entire lives in a certain frame around alcohol, right? It's on every TV show and movie, and it's everywhere you look, right? And what's really important is that we understand how that has affected our thinking, right? How that has affected our conscious thoughts, the thoughts we actually have. I remember I was living in New York, and I had a roommate, and every day I came home, I did the same thing. I took off my shoes, I put down my bag, and I went and I poured a scotch. And one day he said to me, "Why do you do that?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" Like, what, how is that a question? What do you mean, why do I do that? That's what you do, right? Like, I came home, this is what you do. But it was a really interesting moment that kind of pointed out to me, like, oh, I was living in a certain paradigm, in a certain frame with alcohol, that was just what happened. I remember growing up, my parents and grandparents always had, at the end of the day, right, they would have a drink. My grandma and grandpa worked from home. And so there was a certain point in the day where it was time, like we were done working, so go have a drink. And so this idea of like, that's what you do. That was an idea I had never questioned before. I'd never noticed it before. And that's what I'm talking about living inside of sort of an alcohol paradigm. And so what we do in our programs, what happens when you read the book, is really simple. We help you, first of all, recognize, and second, question that stuff, right? And it's through this process that we can change your desire to drink. And when you change your desire, when those subconscious thoughts and conscious thoughts and emotions are in line, guess what happens when you actually go all the way out here and try to change the behavior? It's much easier. And this is one of the things that, you know, I get questions on this all the time. Like, oh, so like if you spend all this time changing your conscious, subconscious thoughts and emotions, does that mean you quit and you didn't get, you know, like cravings or withdrawal? And unfortunately, no, that is not the case. However, I can talk about what's different experiencing a craving when you've quit on willpower versus a craving when you've quit by changing your thinking. When I was on willpower, a craving for me, something that really caused me to like, I'm gonna do it, right? They were awful. It was very, very difficult for me. It was like the only thing I could think of. I was trying to make lists. I was trying to bargain. I mean, you guys probably know what I'm talking about, right? This craving comes on and I would be overtaken by it. There wasn't a way that I could willpower through it. And by the way, if I got through the one that it was at 4 o'clock, I don't know if I would not get through the one that would happen after the kids went to bed. So willpower is constantly pushing back against those thoughts and emotions, right? And it's this tension, and you do this all day long, right? It's like the willpower is here, and then, oh, wait, there's that craving again, and then it's pushing back and forth. And it's this struggle. It's a constant struggle. It's constant pressure. Now, that's what it's like when you quit with willpower. However, when you do what I just described, right? When you change your thoughts, conscious thoughts, subconscious thoughts, and emotions around alcohol, it's a very different game. Those cravings absolutely still happen, right? You will absolutely get to a place, and maybe it's for me, it was a time of day thing. Like every time I was leaving work or thinking about leaving work, right? That thought process, it's like, all right, what do we have at home for dinner? Do I have to stop at the grocery store, right? All of that stuff as you're kind of like moving on to the next phase of your day. It was always then that craving would really start to hit. And the difference after I had changed my thinking was amazing. Because what happened after I changed the way that I thought about alcohol, after I worked on those thoughts and beliefs, what happened was the craving would come up, I would feel it, and I would start to feel a little tense. I would start to feel that little bit of stress. I would start to have those thoughts of like, well, maybe I could, maybe I couldn't. And then I would just be aware of it. And instead of it having this like death grip on my mind, I said, oh man, this is a craving. It's all right. It's going to be okay in a little bit. And just doing that, right, with all of the other work that I'd done to change the way that I saw myself and alcohol and the world and my place in it, from doing all of that, I could recognize a craving and I could just ride it out. That does not mean that it was pleasant, because it was not, right? That does not mean that it was all sunshine and roses, because it wasn't. However, I had the same experience in both times. I had a craving when I was quitting on willpower, and I had a craving after I had changed my thinking. And the difference in experience of those two things, I don't think those cravings were any more or any less. I bet they were about the same. But because I had changed my thinking, because I had done that work, it didn't require me to just grit my teeth and make this and just try to push through. I was aware of it and I could work with it. That's what makes the difference, right? So when you actually change your thinking, you don't need to rely on willpower as the sole tool. So the other question that I get quite often is, well, okay, Are you telling me you never used willpower after you quit with this naked mind? And you know what? Sometimes I did. There were absolutely times that I did. There were times and there were events where it's like, all right, I'm gonna have to push through this. And even with the changing in my thinking, those firsts are always tough. I remember I was in Quebec City, and I had to go to a sales conference with a big marketing reception at the end of the day. The reason they have it in a resort type place like Quebec City is because it's like a mini vacation and everyone gets together and gets wasted. And so I had to go to this reception, and I knew I had to go to this reception. And yes, I had changed my thinking and I had my strategies and I had all of that there. There was a little bit of willpower required, though, to actually get myself to go into that room. That first time I walked in there and saw everyone drinking, there was a pang, right? I felt that pang of like, man, I wish I could just have just one. But I used willpower to rely on, to lean on the strategies that I had. And before I knew it, I was in a much better place. So absolutely, yes, sometimes, and this isn't all the time, but sometimes it might take a little bit of willpower. The difference is, though, right? The difference is that instead of it being days and days and days of willpower, there were just, a couple of minutes. Right? There was like, it's minuscule. Because this, again, was the way that I had trained myself to quit drinking. This is what I thought the process of quitting drinking was like. So actually making that shift and actually saying, you know what, no, I'm not going to drink. There were times when it felt like I was operating on willpower, but I very quickly shifted back to, wait a minute, I've worked on this. Wait a minute, I have a strategy for this, and I was able to get going. So that is the difference, right? Willpower in and of itself. And again, I want to make this super clear. This is available to way more than just quitting alcohol. There are so many other things. I've actually coached people through other things by changing our thoughts and emotions before changing our behavior. That makes an unbelievable difference in your journey. I have some more comments here I definitely want to get to. Maria says, I will need willpower if I'm ever going to drink alcohol again, so I'm not going to bother, as being alcohol free is so much better. I love that. I love that. I love that. Let's see. Annie says, I listened to an interview in January on TNM with a coach called Christy, and you mentioned a technique called RAIN, where you were discussing radical self-care. This helped me so much. Day 67. Oh, well, I'm very excited for you. I'm glad that's helpful. I love doing those coach interviews. It's so important for me to spend time with the coaches and get those conversations out there, because our coaches are amazing. And like Christy bringing up the RAIN thing is fantastic. So I'm really glad you liked it. Let's see. Ian says, I listened to This Naked Mind 4 times over as I drive home from work. My wine witching time. Yes, it changed my mindset and changed my life. That's so true, and it was the same experience I had when I read the book. Is I got to a place where I was like, oh, wait a minute, my thinking shifted, right? And then I would experience that craving and it would be so much different. So I'm glad you know exactly what I mean. Danielle, I love how you never wear normal colored glasses. I feel like blue is a normal color, but I'm taking that as a compliment, Danielle. Let's see, Maria says, all the work I did in 2018 helped me hugely when I went alcohol free again in mid-October. I'm at 140 days now. Yes, Maria, that's awesome. And I do not want to go back. Life is so much better without my health, and improvements have been amazing. Or without alcohol, and my health and improvements have been amazing. Yeah, that's the thing. So I'm actually kind of glad you brought this up. We do all of this work and we talk about changing the way we think and changing the way we feel and moving through this whole process. And we don't even understand fully like what the benefits are on the other side. And this is an amazing thing. Again, when we change our thinking about alcohol as opposed to just using willpower, when we change our thinking, what starts to happen is we start to experience those processes so much sooner and so much clearer. Here's what I mean, right? If you change your thinking about alcohol and you're able to ride out those cravings and you're able to move through that stuff much easier, what starts to happen once you quit drinking is you can start to appreciate the benefits of quitting drinking much sooner. And by that, I mean specifically the mental and the emotional benefits. What happens when we quit with willpower is that we're still fixated, right? We're still focusing on that alcohol. We're still thinking, I wish I could have that beer. Oh, I wish, man, I'm at a barbecue. I'm at a whatever work function like I just talked about. Um, but when you actually shift your thinking, what you're able to then do when you quit drinking is you're able to then enjoy that clear space that comes so much sooner. So that's a really good point, Maria. Thank you for that. Christine said, I reached 4.5 months, then I sabotaged myself, hitting months on March 17. Welcome all advice. Yes. So, Christine, first of all, I really want to commend you on 4.5 months. That is fantastic. It is absolutely something to be proud of. And my best advice when people ask me this and they say, oh, you know what, I've tried to quit and I've gone in this direction and it hasn't quite worked and then I fell off or I sabotaged myself, as you said, is spend some time understanding what was the trigger there. So we do a lot of work in our programs, as you might know, Christine, to kind of uncover what those triggers are, right? To uncover what what are the mental and emotional triggers that we have that get us to start to drink. And what's really important is to understand is that we don't always catch all of them, right? That's why, as you've heard Annie say and me say a bunch of times too, this is not a straight line process. There's all types of detours, right? There's all types of twists and turns and all of that. And that's all normal. It's all part of it. But what this means in practicality, in real life, is that we recognize, hey, the ride home from work is a trigger for me. So I forgot who it was who said that, but saying listen to the book. That was Ein saying listening to the book. That's a trigger. All right, I'm going to listen to a book here, and I'm going to figure out how to do this, and I'm going to figure out how to do that. And after a while, and 4.5 months is definitely a while. We kind of get used to living with those, but then something will hit us, right? Something will hit us that hadn't hit us before, that maybe we weren't necessarily prepared for. And so the amazing part about this, Christine, is looking back at what happened, what ended that 4.5 month run for you, and really try to understand, okay, where was it that I was pulled in a direction that I didn't want to go? That is, again, the number one piece of advice that I can give. And here's why, right? This is what we call a data point. Those moments, those times when those things happen, give us so much information, right? There's so much information that we can take out of that and then apply to our journey for the next time around. I know here in Maine, it's a little early, but there were a few like kind of warm days, not today, but there were a few kind of warm days. And it was, the seasons were changing. I was feeling it feel kind of springy out there. And I know for me that has always been a trigger. Same with going into fall, right? I always liked that. And I remember the first time I went into a fall and I started having a bunch more cravings. And I was really worried, like, oh, maybe this Naked Mind thing didn't work. Nope, that's not what it was. What it was that, I quit drinking. It was May when I quit drinking. So I went through a full summer, and then I was getting into fall. I was just experiencing it for the first time. And so I really spent some time thinking about, like, what is it about this trigger for me? And I was able to work through it. That same exact process can happen with these data points, right? As we can say, all right, I'm going to go back to that day and I'm going to figure out what happened, right? Where did I go? What direction did I go in? And then move from there. And that makes a massive difference. So that is my number one piece. My next piece is going to be really simple. And you probably already know what I'm going to say, Christine, but give yourself grace. You achieved something amazing in 4.5 months. That is always, always, always commendable. And you did a fantastic job. So let yourself off the hook, not in the sense that you don't try to change your behavior, but remind yourself that you're human and that these things happen and that the next step for you is just to pick up and keep going, which is exactly what you're doing. So congratulations again on the 4.5 months. I hope all I said there makes sense and you find helpful, Christine. Let's see. So I think that might be it. Let's see. Oh, Maria talking about sabotage. Yeah, so sabotage. I want to actually spend a minute talking about that because sabotage is this thing that we all say, and it's this idea of like, oh, I was doing so well, and then I just sabotaged myself. And I don't know what's necessarily in people's heads when they say this, but when I hear the word sabotage, I hear some blame, right? I hear like you were trying to throw yourself off the tracks, like you were actively trying to derail your progress. And as you guys know, this Naked Mind is a compassion led, a grace led methodology. And so I highly doubt, and I think if you're honest with yourself, that you didn't say, oh man, you know what? All this work I put in, screw it. I'm throwing it all down the drain and I'm just going to sabotage myself. No, of course, that's not what you said. What happened, and what I see happen all the time when this comes up, is having this whole thing happen that you know, these thoughts and these emotions come over them and it seems very powerful, and they just go in a certain direction. Before they know it, they're back drinking with this whole thing, and this sabotaging, that's not you consciously choosing to cut yourself off, right? And that's where, when I hear that word sabotage, it sounds to me, there's a little like shade of blame there. And I really, Christine, I don't want you I really don't want you to blame yourself here, because you know what? This is a process. And you're literally undoing years of conditioned thinking, years of behavior patterns and thought patterns. And so, yes, you had 4.5 months and then you had a data point. But I'm going to promise you, and I'm pretty sure about this, but like I would bet money that you are not doing it to hurt yourself. You are not doing it to cut off your progress, and that you ran into a speed bump, and that there's something to take away from that. The word sabotage, I don't want to say bothers me, but it makes me feel bad, because I don't want you blaming yourself. There is nothing about where you're at with alcohol that is your fault. However, it is your responsibility. And that's the view that I took. And if you've been in the live alcohol experiment, you have heard Annie and I talk about that before. And so I really want you to kind of take sabotage is a bad word. Yeah, I don't mean it like you can't say it. I just don't want, when I hear that, I hear people blaming themselves. And so if that's the case, please don't, because you made amazing progress, Christine. And this is a really awesome story. So congratulations on being where you're at now, and I'm glad you're here watching the video. All right, everybody, that is it for me today. I am gonna go. I painted my entire basement this weekend. Whew, it has been so much. So I am done. I think I'm gonna go take a shower and like lay on the couch and watch something on TV. I just need to take a break. So anyway, I hope you all have had a fantastic weekend. Thank you for hanging out with me for this last half hour. Before I go, I just want to say again, if you are curious about this idea of changing your thinking, if you want to see how it's played out for other people, please go to nakedlifestories.com. That link is in the description. You can get a free copy of our book, which is it's more than 40 stories of people who have gone through this process, who have changed their thinking to change their behavior. And you can read it for yourself, and you can see how it's played out for yourself. So again, that's nakedlifestories.com. We'd love you to have a free digital copy of the book. So just go there. You'll be able to make that happen. All right. Thank you all very much. I will be back next week. Hope you all have a good one, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care.